Hey everybody, so we have a couple of signings to talk about today from a couple of days ago, both by the Boston Bruins. Before we get into the video, I just quickly want to remind everyone to please hit that like button down below, give the video a thumbs up, that greatly helps out the channel. And if you're new, to please hit that subscribe button and follow along for all my hockey content this season and all year round. So the Boston Bruins have re-signed forwards Charlie Coyle and Chris Wagner, both to multi-year contracts. Wagner's contract is a 3-year deal worth $1.35 million per season, and Charlie Coyle's is a 6-year deal worth $5.25 million per season. So I'm going to talk about both of them here. I'm going to talk about Wagner first because his is, I think, simpler and easier to talk about. This is a great signing for the Bruins. Chris Wagner has really helped out their fourth line. 3-year deal. A lot of times you see these fourth line guys on 1, maybe 2-year deals at most. There's not a lot of continuity there. Teams' fourth lines are, constantly changing. This gives Chris Wagner a home. And he's going to be in Boston now for this season and 3 years after this. $1.35 million, obviously very, easy cap hit, fourth line guy, not a lot of money. Wagner is from Massachusetts. He's from Walpole, so he's playing for his hometown team. He's signed a long-term or semi-long-term deal now with his hometown team. He's going to be on this team now for the foreseeable future. And this is just a great deal for the Boston Bruins. Wagner is 28 years old. He had a career high last season in goals with 12. He has 1 goal so far this season, which obviously the offensive production hasn't been there at the level it was last year. But, he's a fourth liner. That's not a huge deal. He's got 5 points on the year. I think he's going to end up in the 10 to 15 point range, which is fine for a player like him on the fourth line. He's brought a lot to the table since becoming a Bruin. Last year was his first year in Boston. He had a great season. He's physical. He can drop the gloves when he needs to. He's not afraid to throw his body around and make some big hits. He's exactly the kind of player that you want on your fourth line. And he's been that for Boston since coming here. He was really good in the playoffs last year. Brought a lot of physicality to the postseason for the Bruins. And he's going to be with the team, for 3 more seasons now, and I think that this is just a really good deal. He's a great fourth liner. He's really helped out this team, and now he's bringing some continuity to the fourth line. And there's not a bad thing I can say about Chris Wagner staying on the Bruins for 3 more seasons as a fourth liner. I think it's really good that he's found a home here. He plays well here. And I'm excited to see what he brings. Now, Charlie Coyle, longer-term deal. He's 27 years old. He's just signed a 6-year deal, so that obviously keeps him locked up in Boston well into his 30s. He'll be, 33, 34 when this deal expires. The cap hit at first glance, I was like, wow, $5.25 million. That seems maybe a little high, but when you really look at it and you think about it, no, not really. Charlie Coyle has been outstanding since being traded to Boston last year. He was incredibly good in the playoffs. He didn't do a whole lot in the regular season after the trade. He only had 6 points in 21 games after coming over from the Wild, but he was outstanding in the postseason last year for Boston and was really one of the main reasons. The Bruins, quite frankly, would not have made it to the Stanley Cup without Charlie Coyle. Third-line center was a massive hole in their lineup last season, and it was not filled until they traded for Coyle, and Coyle stepped in there and played extremely well, had an outstanding postseason, scored a lot more than I think people expected him to, and really, Boston never would have made it as far as they did without filling that third-line center role, and Coyle did it almost flawlessly. So I feel like Coyle kind of earned this contract in the playoffs last year. He's off to a decent start this year with 5 goals and 9 assists for 14 points in 25 games. He's also +4, so Coyle is a good two-way player. He's a good two-way forward. He's also versatile, which I think is really nice to have in your lineup because, obviously when everyone's healthy, Bergeron and Krejci are the 1-2 punch down the middle for Boston. And then now you have Coyle as a solid third-line center who's very, very good at that role and can, be a big asset to the lineup in that role as a third liner. Or you can move him up and have him play wing on the second line. You could possibly, if someone gets injured, Boston suffered a lot of injuries already this season. He can come up and play your second line center role if need be. He's a great guy that can play pretty much anywhere in the middle of the lineup. He can play center or wing. He's a really good kind of player to have around. He's from Boston, he's from Massachusetts. He's from Weymouth. So local kid, playing for his hometown team, much like Chris Wagner. It's a really, really good fit, and he's played very, very well. I think he's earned this contract. I'm a little surprised that it was 6 years. I thought we'd be more likely to see like a 3 or 4 year deal for Coyle, but I guess Boston, wanted to lock him up even longer and gave him six years. So that's really the only surprising thing to me about that deal is how long it is. I was really expecting a 3 or 4 year contract, not a 6 year one. But hey, I'm not going to complain about it. Coyle has been really, really good since coming over to Boston. He's an asset to this team without a doubt. He gives them a lot of flexibility in the middle of their lineup. He can play power play. He's good 5-on-5. He's a solid two-way forward. The point totals aren't always there. He's not, the biggest point producer. He's only had point totals in the 30s the past 2 seasons. But his career high is 56. So he's shown that it is, possible for him to be a 50-plus point player. He just hasn't been that way too recently. But again, I think he's fits well in Boston. I think we might see some better years out of him in Boston, certainly than what we saw in Minnesota. Minnesota's not a team that scores a whole lot, so I think playing in Boston with this team could certainly see his point totals go up into the 40s and even maybe the 50s. And I think that would be really, really good if we see that. But $5.25 million for a very solid middle of the lineup player, I don't think is too bad. And I'm glad that Boston is keeping Coyle around because he's absolutely been an asset to this team since coming here. And it's good to see. And both these deals I think overall are very good. I think Don Sweeney's done a very good job of keeping the right players in place here. And I really have no complaints. I was a little. Coyle's contract was a little bit bigger than I was expecting, but when you go back and look at how he's played, and certainly how he played in the playoffs last season, it's like that's definitely a guy that you want to keep around and a guy that has earned this contract. And then Wagner is just an outstanding fourth-line player in the modern NHL, exactly the kind of guy that you want on your grind line like that. So I can't complain about either of these deals. I think they're both very good, and Boston is keeping important players in place here, knowing that their cup window is now, and that if they're going to win a cup again with this group, they or not even again, because there's only a few guys left from 2011, but if they're going to win a cup with this group, Bergeron, Marchand, Chara already have one, but pretty much Krejci as well, Tuukka. But, for the most part, it's kind of a new group from that 2011 team, certainly. A lot of the other surrounding players have changed. So if this group is going to win a cup, they've got to do it really, in the next, few seasons. Chara's getting older, Bergeron, Marchand are getting older. You obviously have Pastrnak coming up, but Krejci's getting older as well. So this is kind of a must-win time for the Boston Bruins. We saw them go to the Stanley Cup final last year, lose in Game 7, which obviously stings. But, they've still got this cup window open for, I think, the next couple 2 to 3 seasons. I think it's really wide open, and they're going to look to win one in that time. So they got to keep players like these around, and they are doing that. So no complaints from me. Both pretty good contracts in my mind. And with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.